Let's go ahead and complete our language arts practice book pages 245 and 246. And we'll also read our story from our textbook on page 140 through 171. Let's start first with our practice book, page 245. Page 245 is called No More Arguing. The next story that we're going to read from our textbook is called Two Greedy Bears, and we're going to see how they have a pretty unpleasant attitude throughout the story. Let's go ahead and complete this page first. The directions say, circle and write the word that completes each sentence. Here we have our illustration as a clue. Here one is named Mo and one is named Bo. And we're going to see there are two pieces of cake here, but you'll notice that they're not quite equal. That will be important when we read through our sentences right now. Number one piece of cake was, one piece of cake was larger appetite. What's the best word? Larger. Let's circle and write. 2. The pieces aren't journey equal. Equal. Let's circle and write. 3. Bo and Mo, about it. Thirstier, argued. Bo and Mo argued about it. Wow, this is pretty unpleasant, right? This situation, rather than being thankful for the option of having some, they're spending time arguing, which is really unpleasant to anybody's ears. Number 4. I'm, then you are, said Bo. I'm hungrier, arguing, than you are. I'm hungrier than you are, said Bo. Even if it's true that Bo is hungry, this is really not a great way to solve a problem. In fact, it's probably creating a bigger problem, right? I think our example should be to prefer one another, meaning allowing someone else to have a greater chance at something, and that's helping us to be a better person. Sometimes we can't focus so much on ourselves so much. We do need to think about others more. So here we already see a lot of problems here happening with these two. I don't prefer the way that they're standing with their hands on their hips. That's a pretty unpleasant way to stand. And then it looks like they're using their mouths. Maybe they're using a louder voice. So this is not a good problem-solving situation. So I would encourage my first graders to problem solve in a completely different way than what they're showing you right here. Okay, so number 5. Bo got a stomach ache. Thirstier, bigger. Bo got a bigger stomach ache. Bigger. Well, I don't think that's what Bo expected. Bo said he was hungrier and must have eaten the bigger piece. But getting that bigger piece also resulted in the consequence of a bigger stomachache. Ooh, that's not a great solution to that problem. There was probably a better way to solve that. Let's go ahead and continue on to our textbook and read our story for this week. Before we start our actual story, I just want to quickly let you know that there are 2 other stories before the one that we will read together. And you can choose to read these on your own time or maybe have a parent read them with you. This starts here on page 118 and 119, and it's a focus on folk tales. We've already talked about folk tales quite a lot, but there are some written right here. One of them is Sister Hen's Cool Drink and What is in Mole's Sack, which are all included here in your textbook. So if you want to read these stories on your own time, you can certainly do that. We're not going to read them together right now, but if you want to read them on your own, I encourage you to do that. But if you're reading with me right now, we're actually going to go ahead and continue. Let's go to page 140 and 141 for this week's story called Two Greedy Bears. Think about this before we even start. Do you know what it means to be greedy? Greedy is wanting something, maybe that someone else has, and it's often considered a negative because you want it so much. You don't think the other person deserves it at all. And you might end up making a choice to get it in a way that is not honest or in a way that causes a bigger problem. So two greedy bears. It's when you're thinking only about yourself and you're not considering others. Thirsty bears. Read the next story to find out what happens to two bear cubs who want the same piece of cheese. When a sly fox comes by, the bears learn a lesson. Do you know this word sly? Do you know what that means? Sly. Sly is similar to sneaky. Now, being sly is not necessarily a bad thing. For example, if you're planning a surprise for someone, maybe you're going to have a surprise gift or present to give them, and you don't want them to know about it, you might have to be careful about where you place that gift in your house if you don't want that person to see the gift. You have to be a little bit sly to hide the gift until it's that person's birthday and you can give it to them. If we think about that meaning, sly is good. There's nothing bad about being sly when you're doing a good thing. Sometimes though, particularly in this story, we're going to see that sly here is a bit sneaky, meaning in a way that is doing a trick. Often when you see a fox in a story, a fox is smart and clever and will sometimes do a trick on the other characters. So sly can be both positive, but sometimes it can also be a little bit negative depending on the situation. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at our words to know. Began, laugh, sure, head, divide, second, break, thirsty, thirstier, burst, turning, more, morning, her, other, water, better. Let's read our practice sentences. 1. One bear was thirsty. 2. The other bear was thirstier. 3. The second bear drank more and more water. 4. The first bear began to laugh. 5. You are going to burst, she said. 6. You'd better stop drinking. 7. Turning her head, the second bear said, I am hungry. 8. We can divide this food if we break it in two. 9. Sure, said the first bear. 10. We can do that in the morning. When you're ready, let's turn. Meet the author. When she was young, Mira Ginsburg's parents taught her to love books. Now she is an author and has written more than 30 books. Some of her favorite things are folk tales, poetry, and very old music. Here's our story, Two Greedy bears, adapted from a Hungarian folk tale. Remember, a folk tale usually teaches us an important lesson through this story. So let's see if you read the story and you're able to decide what the lesson is. When you're ready, let's turn. Ready, begin. Two bear cubs went out to see the world. They walked and walked till they came to a brook. A brook is like a stream. It's where there's water that flows through in nature. "I'm thirsty," said one. "I'm thirstier," said the other. They put their heads down to the water and drank. "You had more," cried one, and drank some more. "Now you had more," cried the other, and drank some more. Oh, wow, first grade. Have you noticed the attitudes already of these bears? It makes sense that they were called two greedy bears. It seems like even drinking water has become a competition between these two. It's pretty unpleasant, and we're only on the first page. Think about that maybe when you are in your own life. It's not very pleasant to hear people when they're being greedy. Let's turn the page. And so they drank and drank, and their stomachs got bigger and bigger, till a frog peeked out of the water and laughed. Look, the frog is down here. I'll move mine a little bit. There you can see. Here's the frog at the bottom. "Look at those pot-bellied bear cubs. If they drink any more, they'll burst." Yeah, it looks like they might be pretty uncomfortable because of how much they were trying to drink. Seems a little wasteful, too. They should drink what they need, but drinking water should not become a competition between the two of them. Let's turn. Ready, begin. The bear cubs sat down on the grass and looked at their stomachs. "I have a stomach ache," one cried. "I have a bigger one," cried the other. They cried and cried till they fell asleep. Oof, I understand why that frog went back into the water. All I'm hearing from these two is a lot of complaining and competition. It's pretty unpleasant. So far, all they have done is had too much water to drink, gotten a stomach ache, and now they're falling asleep. Let's see what happens next. In the morning, they woke up feeling better and continued their journey. "I am hungry," said one. "I am hungrier," said the other. And suddenly they saw a big round cheese lying by the roadside. They wanted to divide it, but they did not know how to break it into equal parts. Each was afraid the other would get the bigger piece. First grade, I want you to think about this before we turn our page. How would you solve this problem? You have two bear cubs, one very large piece of cheese. How could you divide this so that they each get an equal amount? Well, depending on the type of cheese, you do know cheese actually does divide pretty easily. So they actually could divide this pretty well. But here's the key sentence. It says, each was afraid the other would get the bigger piece. They're more interested in themselves than they are in just trying to solve the problem. They're not remembering to prefer one another. This really could have a very easy solution. The next page could just say, they broke the cheese in half and ate it, the end. But that's not what this folktale is about. Instead, it's trying to teach us a lesson. So let's continue reading and see how it goes. Oh my, look at this illustration. Already we can see problems. Let's read. Ready? Begin. They argued and they growled and they began to fight till a fox came by. "What are you arguing about?" the sly one asked the bear cubs. "We don't know how to divide the cheese so that we'll both get equal parts." "That's easy," she said. "I'll help you." Think about this, first grade. Already they've described this fox as a sly fox. Make a prediction. How do you think this fox is going to help the two bears? When you're ready, let's turn. All right, again, let's look at this illustration before we even begin reading. Looks like the bears are struggling to get along, but also look at the fox and how she has divided that cheese. Let's see what it says. She took the cheese and broke it in two. But she made sure that one piece was bigger than the other. And the bear cubs cried, "That one is bigger." Oh, but that was not an accident, first grade. She did this on purpose. Why do you think she did this on purpose? To make sure one piece was much larger than the other? This is a sly fox indeed. Let's turn the page and find out why she did that. "Don't worry, I know what to do." And she took a big bite out of the larger piece. "Now that one's bigger." Do you think you know what's happening here? Let's turn and continue. "Have patience." And she took a bite out of the second piece. "Now this one's bigger." First grade, have you caught on to what this fox is doing? She's not really helping them solve their problem, is she? But I don't think the bears are aware of her plan. Let's turn. Wait, the fox said with her mouth full of cheese. "In just a moment, they'll be equal." She took another bite, and then another. And the bear cubs kept turning their black noses from the bigger piece to the smaller one, from the smaller one to the bigger one. "Now this one's bigger. Now that one's bigger." First grade, please notice, look at the sizes of the pieces of cheese. And what has the fox been doing this whole time? She's the one who's been eating it. Let's turn. And the fox kept on dividing and dividing the cheese till she could eat no more. "And now, good appetite to you, my friends." She flicked her tail and stalked away. Look at what is remaining. These tiny pieces are left, and the bears have had none of it. The fox has eaten until she is no longer hungry. Very sly. Let's turn. By then, all that was left of the big round cheese were two tiny crumbs. But they were equal. First grade, what do you think the lesson is from this folk tale? I think these greedy bears have learned that being greedy is not worth it. I want you to go ahead and turn the page and take a look here, because there are a few more examples about how to divide, and it's called fraction action. One morning, Miss Prime turned off all the lights in the classroom. Watch how to draw a fraction. Start with a whole shape. She decided to do a whole circle. Then make it into 2 equal parts. So equal means where the 2 pieces are the same amount. So she drew one straight line down the center of her circle. Each part is called 1/2. This part of the circle, this is 1/2 of the circle. Here is a second half of the circle. Together, these 2 halves make one whole circle. Let's look at a few more examples. Now let's think of some fractions in real life. Use your imagination to make a picture in your mind of what I say. A tuna sandwich cut in half. Half a glass of juice. A bowl of ice cream that is half vanilla and half chocolate. It's time for you to tell me about some halves. What can you imagine, Otto? A warm muffin cut in half. My bank is half full. Half my garden has flowers, right? Some of it here, this is flowers. The other half has all these vegetables. The cow jumped over half a moon. But also, if you're thinking about if you're cooking in the kitchen or baking, you probably know the measurements. There's a half cup measurement, or maybe you've had a food item that you needed to cut in half, right? And the importance of keeping things divided into equal parts. Great job reading from our textbook. Let's go ahead and go back to our practice book, page 246. Page 246 is called 2 Greedy Bears. Write a complete sentence to answer each question. Remember, a complete sentence has 2 things. It needs to tell us who and what they do. And remember, a sentence starts with a capital, and it ends with an ending punctuation mark. Okay, here's our first question. 1. What were the bears like? Let's imagine someone has not read this story. How could we describe the bears? I'm going to write a couple of words to describe them. I'm going to say the bears were, and then you can choose your own words, or you can use some of the same words that I will write down. I'm going to describe the bears. I'm going to say the bears were, and of course we know it's even in the title of the story, greedy, because they certainly were greedy. So I'm going to say the bears were greedy. One other thing I noticed is that they were pretty impatient, meaning they were not willing to prefer one another. So they were being impatient with each other. And another really big word I'm going to use actually is argumentative, which means that they were arguing a lot with each other. Okay, that's going to be my sample sentence, but if you want to choose other words, that's also okay for you to do so. My sample sentence says, the bears were greedy, comma. I'm going to put a comma because I'm making a list of describing words. So my comma tells me I'm making a list. I have more words that are going to follow. The bears were greedy, comma, impatient, comma, impatient meaning not patient, and argumentative. Argumentative, meaning they would argue a lot, right? Argumentative. And I finished off with a period. I made sure my sentence started with a capital. Number 2. What was the fox like? There was one word that the book used often to describe the fox. Do you remember that word? It starts with an S. The fox was sly. Yeah, so I'm going to describe my fox here. I'm going to say the fox was sly. I might even say she was sneaky. But also, the fox was only interested in herself. She was actually not interested in solving the problem that the bears had. She was just interested in eating all the cheese all herself. So I'm going to say the fox was sly, sneaky, and focused on herself. My sentence says the fox was sly, comma, sneaky, comma, and focused on herself. I also have a capital on this sentence and a period as my punctuation mark at the end. First grade, I hope that through reading this story, you've realized there are some very unpleasant character traits that are shown in this folktale. And I hope it encourages you to make sure you make choices so that these kinds of choices don't show up in your own life. I know that I am challenged to make sure that I'm making better choices than what I read about in this story.